Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding today's important hearing. Thank you, Ranking Member Napolitano, and thank you, Administrator Stanislaus, for joining us again today. It's great to see you. This is a really important issue. I represent Central and Northwest Connecticut, which is full of brownfield sites. A few Superfund, but frankly, a lot of brownfield sites. So this is of critical importance to us to both preserve open spaces, which I'm glad you mentioned, as well as ensuring we get these properties back into productive play for our communities. It's an important part of revitalizing. So I want to give you two examples of how important this is. We had Naugatuck Valley Community College received a grant for one of the training programs. They've had tremendous success, have trained a lot of young and not as young people to enter into the workforce and are helping clean up sites. And this is a vitally important part of the program, and I'm glad you flagged that. My city of Meriden just recently won a $200,000 award, again, to do assessment, and it's going to be part of an important downtown revitalization. And I want to also salute you for mentioning the critical importance of this to the administration's and, frankly, the country's commitment to manufacturing. Many of our communities in the Northeast, as well as the Midwest, as well as Ohio, Indiana, are full of former brownfield sites, and it's vitally important if we are going to reinvigorate the manufacturing sector to take seriously our commitment to these communities that help drive the last centuries of economic development. We need to look, I think, at the nonprofit sector. You mentioned that in passing, and I'd like to explore that a little bit more with you. For example, in my largest city of Waterbury, there's a nonprofit called Brass City Harvest. They want to address the nutritional needs of the community, help put people to work, and frankly, help teach STEM education to young people. It's a wonderful program, but as a nonprofit, they are not eligible for some of these programs. Can you talk a little bit about what the agency is looking at in this, how important they think that might be? Thank you.
Yeah, you know, we've heard from numerous not-for-profits, those that would like to get, particularly this is applicable to assessment grants. They're currently ineligible. So everything from housing developers that is the extension of local government to construct affordable housing, to various kinds of manufacturing, not-for-profits locally, that they would like these assessment grants to really, again, extend the arm of local government. So, I mean, I think there's an inadvertent division between cleanup and assessment. So you have not-for-profits eligible for cleanup, but they don't have the ability to get the upfront assessment resource to identify sites, whether they are or not contaminated.
And I can tell you our nonprofits have a great deal of trouble coming up with the funds as it is. So to come up with the funds for an assessment to even determine whether this is feasible is a real barrier. It may not seem like a lot of money, but to them it is. Is this an area where you believe congressional action would facilitate or frankly be necessary in order for the agency to include nonprofits?
Yeah, I mean, again, as we've heard from stakeholders, because the statute prohibits not-for-profits to be eligible, it will require congressional action.
Next, I wanted to follow up on your remarks a little bit. We know there's a Senate proposal out there that cordons off some area of the funding and sets them aside. Could you talk a little bit more about whether you think that is a good route? Are there unintended consequences that could come from an understandable and laudable attempt to ensure that certain areas get more attention?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that it should be up to the community at the right time to determine end uses. And a lot of times, viable end uses really come in the middle of that process. And once you've done assessment, you can quantify the cost of cleanup, you can figure out what is financially viable at that site. So among a suite of uses. So if we divide the pot up front, you know, essentially you're putting the federal government in the position of judging an end use, which we don't believe is the right place for the federal government. You know, so rather we would rather have, let's just look at, is the applicant competent? Have they demonstrated competency? Have they demonstrated partnership, additional leveraging resources for the ultimate shared end result of making a project happen on the ground, whatever those end uses may be that the community selects?
And if I may, it ties into, you mentioned in your written testimony about multi-purpose grants. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you've discovered on that?
Sure. You know, this really emerged from comments that we've received from communities the opportunity to possibly look at both assessment and cleanup grants together. And we think that we want to continue to pursue that. We have authority, existing authority to do that. You know, we're still looking at what's the best fit of mixing a number of uses in one grant. You know, and we need to, you know, I think what we're trying to do is balance flexibility for the applicant versus if you have money that is laid out for extended periods of time, then it may not be the best use of money. So we're trying to figure out giving flexibility for their multi-purposes, but making sure it's structured in a way that's accountable as well. You know, so.
Thank you, and I see my time has expired. Thank you very much.
Mr. Katko.